Don't leave me this way.
That's it. Keep singing.
Now you messed me up. You can't stay alive. No, how does it go? You tell me. How does that go?
I don't know the lyrics to that one. I'm one of those, if I've got it in front of me and I got backup singers, like
Oh, you go big like that, huh?
actually no. So I gotta tell you that with the singing stuff, it's funny. We had a local restaurant that used to do karaoke night,
Uh-huh.
and I throughout, throughout your years, I mean, we've all been at the bars and stuff, the karaoke, and after a couple drinks, you go up there with your friends and you're, kind of be, but I've never actually gotten up and been like, okay, I'm going to request this song and I'm going to intentionally sing it, right? Well,
Uh-huh.
my daughter, so this is the story actually about my daughter, not me, but so we went to this restaurant when they first started, and we're at dinner and my daughter's like, what's that? And we're like trying to explain to her what karaoke is. And I think she was like 6
Mm-hmm.
at the time. And so we're explaining to her, and then the next thing we know, because our friends own this place, so she knew it pretty well, and so she had said, yeah, I need to go to the bathroom, and went off to the bathroom, and a few minutes later, past the time that it would take her to go to the bathroom, Jeff, my husband's like, where's Maddie? I'm like, well, she went to the bathroom maybe. And then suddenly we look over and she's talking to the karaoke guy. We're just watching from our table, which is, pretty much just off the area that they were doing karaoke. And we're
Correct.
just watching her, and she talks to the guy. Next thing you know, he gets on the mic and he introduces her. And she goes up to the mic and he comes and lowers it down to her little 6-year-old self, which is still
Mm-hmm.
peanut.
Correct.
And at the time, that was when, what is it? The Frozen.
I was,
It
I was
just
about to
come
say,
out recently.
let it go.
And it was Let It Go. And that girl knew, and it was so funny because of course, they have the big monitor where, all of the lyrics are coming across.
Uh-huh.
And there's some lyrics in that song that, 6-year-old, and people are like, because she's looking at it like she's reading it, but she really knows it by heart. So she's not reading anything. But it was on cue and everything. I'm like, she's a natural karaokeer. And it became literally an obsession for 2.5 years. We had to go every Wednesday
Oh,
because of her.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 She gets
Yeah.
it from you. She gets it from you.
She doesn't get it from me because I think I went up once in 2.5 years.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
my husband is a natural entertainer. He just
Ah,
loves it.
gotcha.
So,
Well, thank you for that intro. So 7/22/2020, 106 EP9. Um, don't despise small beginnings, they say, because it starts up and before you know it, it goes. And just what you were saying just now, we're going into double digits soon. Uh, that's amazing. How have you been? What's going on in Tracy's world?
well, we always start with me, it seems like.
Ah,
I want to ask you,
look at
I
you.
have no problem telling you what's going on in my world. You know that. But, we started off by off camera, right? Me noticing what you were wearing and everything. And then I think that was such a great share. But yeah, there you are. That's right. Wear it proud. That's what I'm talking about. So tell us again. What are you wearing, Wulwyn?
So it's a gold trimmed, embroidery, just a bunch of threads here, right? That goes around the neck. So there are various tribes in Liberia, and the various tribes have different attires. So one of the most common ones that when you see a shirt, you say was that a Vai shirt. So Vai is one of the tribes there, VAI. And you have these that you can embroider with, I mean, gold and just thick different designs that you can do. Some cotton, some, really light cotton, like this one is a summer, because you can see the colors in there, my coat of many colors. Um, I have a couple others here that I think that I wear in the summers, in the winter rather, and it comes with the hat, right? But I didn't want to come and bring the hat here because mom says don't wear hats in the house.
You're gonna have to start taking these outside so you can wear your hats.
There you go, there you go. Wear my hat, crank it to the side. But yeah, it's today I went in the closet. I said, what am I gonna wear? Polo shirt, uh a dress shirt, long sleeves, and I saw it. I was like, I'm gonna wear this, and picked it up, and here it is. Really, really feels like as we said earlier, I'm home. And what are you wearing?
I'm not wearing something quite so homebound. I was actually looking for, I have a tank top on, and I'm like, yeah, I need a little bit more coverage, I think, for the people and the camera and stuff. So I just put this on because I was too. It's funny. We were spending this time, how to adorn ourselves kind of concept.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Right? Like, what am I going to wear? And I started with a jacket. I'm like, oh, no. This is not a jacket day. I'm not feeling it. So Correct. This is my, kind of cover to my top that also lets me breathe.
There you go. You're wearing it well.
Thank you.
It well.
Well, and it is about what's comfortable.
Correct.
Right? And I think it's like, okay, so there's this integration. I mean, for so long, it's, oh, what does the world want to see of me? I even think about trends and fashions for women, high heel shoes, which traditionally were not anything close to comfortable, but they made our legs look long and they made us look good.
Correct.
So women would even talk about how they would sacrifice, beauty and fashion to what they really wanted. Or they sacrificed what they really wanted to beauty and fashion. And so I see us coming into this time where it's like, to your point, like what constitutes home for me? What's comfortable? What also reflects me.
Correct.
Right. And also, what could be that thing that others could also enjoy seeing on me. Right. So it's not just about how do I need to look to the world or just about being comfortable. It's this marriage of both. And I do think it's funny that we both spent time, actually. I don't know if you normally spend time. I normally am just like, okay, I got to put something on.
True. I today, I don't know why. Today is my first, so I'm really relaxed today because I have absolutely no meetings except this one, right? And I before this, woke up, did some work with Verlin, had to do some forms online. And then we prayed. After praying, I came on here, did a couple things, said, you know what, let me go look for what I'm wearing, right? So I think that plays into the time I had to think about it. And more so, you talked about being comfortable, right? And I think in order for us to to give our best to the world, in order for us to be in our zones of excellence and genius, as we had heard. So if you hadn't heard this, go to episode 2, I think. You will find out. Memory. I know they will find that in there. But in order for us to be in those various zones, you can't operate not being comfortable. You can't be the best without being comfortable. You and I wouldn't be talking on here if I wasn't comfortable with you and you with me. We had to know that this was a safe place in our conversations to even come and say, hey, let's do an eavesdrop for people to come and hear what we're saying. And I really don't care, but 5 million people could watch this. 1 could see it, 0 could see it. But this is our biweekly talk that we set, and we say, hey, let's open it up to the world, right? So it's been comfortable in who you are, in your own skin, in your dialect or your language, or in your what you're wearing, in your hairdo, in the short the pumps or the stilettos, right? In the bare bottoms or in the dashiki, right? It's exactly who you can be, because if I take you out of your zone, not saying taking you out of your comfort zone, but taking you out of where you're comfortable, because there's a thin line between, oh, don't be comfortable. We're not talking about that. We're talking about comfort in who you are. That's a different comfort level than going into comfort to say, if you stay in your comfort zone, it's complacency. We're not talking about comfort, complacency. We're talking about comforting, delivering who you are, right? So you make it easy for me to be comfortable. I make it easy for you to be comfortable, and then we execute. And that's where we remember we said we get in the sandbox and play.
I think this is absolutely miraculous, and I'll tell you why. You know, everything always sets itself up in such a way, and the more I really recognize the magic that is the development of how things are meant to unfold, the more I'm just like, holy cow. So one of the things I've been saying has been a very, very big topic of conversation, and since the last time you and I spoke with clients primarily, but just, you know, kind of in every conversation I've been having, is control. And if we think about the reasons why we control, right? Either we try to, and we're talking about external control, other people, circumstances, our environments in any way, it's because of fear of security and safety. And one of the things that I've been finding myself saying is that, you know, where we recognize that, it's like we do need to then create a comfort zone in ourselves, because when we're comfortable with ourselves, then we will be comfortable in our environments, and we won't need to control them in order to feel comfortable, safe, and secure. And there's so much, I mean, the reason we just see so much chaos right now, and not just chaos, but like, I mean, I had a client session earlier today where it's a relatively new client. And this piece of control really came up. I mean, it's up until this session, you know, it was kind of feeding back and forth. And then suddenly I introduced something, and there was this massive kickback. And I was like, and it was funny because the thing I was introducing was asking maybe to consider letting go of the reins in certain ways, control, in order to be supported.
Gotcha.
And there was this, I'm not being heard, I'm not being seen. It was, and I get that. I mean, it's not anything new that I've never dealt with before, but in this arena that we're currently in, there's just so much of that. People pushing back. I've heard from clients having problems with their own clients, you know, sending nasty emails, blame, and making it their problem, and all of these things that people are not taking accountability. And I think it's because we haven't come to this place of comfort within ourselves. And so as the external forces that we've used to feel comfortable are starting to disintegrate or change at the very least, we feel out of control. Because if that's my feeling of control and safety, and it is no longer that, then suddenly I don't feel safe, comfortable, and in control. And so I have to go looking for where I can control. And that's where we're seeing just people out of control.
Wow.
So this thing we're talking about, this little thing that started off as comfort in our clothing and how we look and all that, it's a real thing. The fact you felt at peace because you had the time to consider what is it that what makes me joyful and happy. Because I always tell people what brings us joy and peace and fun is the arena we're meant to show up in. That is our zone of genius. That is where, regardless of what choices we make around clothing or relationships or anything, that's coming from a deep sense of self. And this is discernment of self. And this is right for me. And this is comfortable in the sense of I can show, to your point of not about complacency comfort, but literally about self-comfort. I can comfort myself in these ways. I can feel secure in myself. I can feel that this is the truth within myself. And that's what finally came about with this one conversation with this client, because he just kept saying, I don't feel like I'm being heard. And I said, okay, I honor that you're communicating that. And he said, you know, you're doing this, you're not doing that. And I said, I honor that you're not feeling heard. And I'm going to actually tell you, you can't tell me what I'm thinking and feeling. I want you to Please
Look at
communicate
look at
your
that.
feelings and thoughts, but do not project what you think I'm feeling and thinking, because you cannot do that. You cannot control that, in other words.
What was the reaction?
He took a pause and he says, I understand that. I mean, these are people, obviously, if I'm working with them, they're ready enough to step back from ego
Correct.
and be in that space of change. And
Mm,
it takes time because we are massively triggered in our control mechanisms right now. All of us, every single individual on this planet.
mm-hmm. So true. So true.
Right. And so
So
where
true.
we're feeding ourselves in the right ways, we're able to kind of modulate that more effectively. Where we
Mm.
don't have the tools, or we don't have the inner insight, or we haven't done this work before, those are the people that literally are coming across to the rest of the world as completely out of control.
You know, I have a mentor, so we have a beautiful relationship. She's a mentor to me. I'm a mentor to her. So it's a give and take, right? It's she understands um, she understands how to extract. She asks questions. So I'm a question person, right? I'm the one who always asks questions. Hey, sometimes like even today, you talk about control, right? Today when I said, so how are you? And then you say, well, when every time, um, do you know I there was a there was a little jitter in my system that said, oh, I asked her and she asked me, so why isn't she answering the question she's footing back? Man, you better keep talking. It's so here's the answer. So in that simple interaction where you and it's not even control per se, but there that may be a type because I'm saying I'm controlling. I said, hey Tracy, how are you today? And you say, oh no, well, when you always ask me first, so you go ahead and you answer that question and tell me about your shirt. I'm like, oh, oops, I'm deer in the headlights, right? So I'm that guy who's like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you projecting this on me? Quit doing that. But I this lady and I were talking earlier this week, I believe, and she she's good for everybody. She's excellent for everybody, but herself. But herself. And the thing that comes easy for her to do for me and others, and this is not her day job, this is just us talking, and she naturally has this gift to just unfold deep things in you, and she's the person who made me cry, asking me about why is your picture not on your website, and I'm like, nothing. And she says, well, when the Holy Spirit's telling me to ask you this question, I'm like, well, say nothing. I don't, and in less than 10-15 seconds, I'm crying. I don't want to be I think I told you that story. I don't want to be associated with something that may fail. Like I thought basketball failed me. But I asked her, I said, so why is it so easy for you to help others, but it is not easy for you to help yourself? And thinking about it, it's easy for her to control me in her questions, but it's so hard for her to control herself, for her to allow herself to be, and we spoke about this, I think, episode 4 or 5, about grace and compassion on yourself in order for you to prepare self-introspect, for you to introspect, and then solutions unfold, right? So that control also is a detriment. As much as it's you and I'm trying to control, I may try to control the narrative between A and B, but that control is also detrimental to yourself. Because when you control yourself, there's an option in there that something has to support you, something has to help you, no man's island, we heard that, right? And until you can let go and surrender this body to, for me, it's my spirit, surrender my spirit to God, to the Holy Spirit, and say, you know what, God? show me exactly what I need to do in this situation. Should I be talking to Traci? Should I not be talking to Traci? Right? I have to let go of that in order for me to grow. Because I still, if I stay in my controlling self, I'm not gonna go there and work with anybody. It's selfishness comes in, right? I'm gonna punt back to you because I saw you shaking your head a couple of times, and I think there were points you wanted to jump in on.
I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, my head, ching, 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 ching. Yeah. Well, and I also work very carefully on staying present with what you're saying, right? So that's the piece, and
Correct.
that I also lean into trust that I'll remember if it's pertinent. If I forget, then I'm into, you know.
Gotcha.
So I'm not sitting here thinking about the next thing I'm going to say.
That's true. That's
But
true.
what you were just saying really got me feeling into a couple things. So I just so happens in this rotation the last 2 weeks, I've spoken to mostly male clients. And I've seen this beautiful thing come up that I noticed when I was working at Butner, which was all with all men. And we've gotten to that same piece that you just talked about with your mentor, with your
Can
friend
you
who,
can you just give them a quick one sentence about Butner? Because they may be thinking they don't know the people who
oh
are
yeah, that's right. I really never got into that story, did I?
just a
So
quick
quick sentence.
right.
I had a friend a number of years ago who was running a men's transformational program. She's a clinical psychologist at Butner Federal Prison, excuse me, in the minimum security camp. And so she had been running it for a couple of years. And when she became aware of the kind of linguistic work that I did, she asked me if I'd come and co-facilitate some of that piece, because she said, you know, these men, I think, need to learn how their inner conversations are affecting their outer conversations, which are affecting their outcomes.
Yes.
And so I did that for 3 years. I went in as a volunteer and worked with these men, and many of them were ex-executives. So this is where I kind of started to have that feed into working with people in the executive realm, because there's just definite need. You know, when you had all this time today to decide what was true for you. When we're under the gun constantly and the stress is high and the stakes are high,
Mm,
we're oftentimes operating on things that aren't really in alignment with who we truly are or want to be. And so that's where I became really interested in that.
excellent.
But so yeah, so I help facilitate their understanding of self-talk,
Gotcha.
and also how that was always a vehicle for their deep inner soul truth, that their external language would tell so many things about what was true about what they came for. And so that was incredibly rewarding work. But so in the last couple of weeks working with my male clients, we've been talking about this idea of control. And the one question that has brought almost every single one of them, at least to total stunned silence, if not emotion response: what do you really want? What brings you joy and what's fun for you?
Mm.
And do you know what every single one of them has said? I don't know.
Whoa.
I don't know.
Wow.
Right? And it goes back to what I've been saying for years, is we have conditioned men so much to be the providers, the protectors, and the servers. You know, I'm here to provide, protect, and serve, and that is my identity. And I tell the stories of what brings me fun and what brings me joy and what brings me success and fulfillment based on what you're expecting of me. I tell the stories to be in alignment with your
Mm.
expectations, not with my truth. Every single I don't know. The one recently today was you just touched on a really, really touchy subject for me, and I need some time to contemplate this. I'm like, it's okay. You can take as much time as you need. And this is a guy who tells stories at the drop of the hat. In fact, a lot of times I have to disrupt the stories because I'm like, it's not about the story. He can just give answers to everything. Oh, and I have a story for that. I have a story for that. And that's exactly what we're being asked to do, is go in and answer those questions. Because I said to them, what brings you joy and what is fun for you is your zone of genius. The reason this is such an emotional question for you is not only because you haven't really taken the time to consider this, at least probably not in a long time. You did probably at some point when you were a kid, but you forgot. It's that you have been the missing common denominator in your own brilliance.
Oh my goodness.
what you're gifting the world, everyone else is benefiting from but you.
Okay, I gotta take a break. I gotta take a break because you're touching stuff. Um, so I don't like you, Tracy. I don't like you. I don't like you. Right now, I don't like you because in order for me to be true, I have to verbalize what I am feeling right now, right? And you talk about men having to go out and hunt and eat what you hunt, provide for the family, etc. When I in 2011, when I God called me and told me to leave my job, and the so-called six figures were not coming in anymore. Can you imagine that space where my association of my manhood was questioned to the point that I was suicidal? Questioned to the point that I said to myself, uh, I'm I'm worth, can you imagine this? I said, I'm worth more in death to my family right now because of the insurance
Life
I had
insurance.
on me, and say, well, I could kill myself and they would live well. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine putting your worth on dollars
Yes.
versus and that particular thing you were talking about, men, oh my goodness, we and it's not an excuse though, right? I think the condition has been, hey, you must stand, you must not cry, you must be the man, man up. Sister, I cry for every, my wife says, whoa, quit crying, oh, I got feelings, honey, I got feelings. But in order to have gotten out of that place, Tracy, in order to have gotten out of the the place of a credit score wasn't Wulwyn-Porte, because the credit score went down to 3. I didn't know it went that, it could go that low. It went, sister, it went low. I was like, geez, man, you go way down there like that? It went
And yet you are still here as you are.
still here. The house went, right? The car went, sleeping on the floor, right? And I'm still there and I'm pinching myself to see if this is still, but all of that was necessary for me to be able to come here today and say, hey, and you said it, it's all of these things will have to allow in order for us to come into who we are supposed to be and share whatever we're given to the world. We are partaking in it also, and not just being onlookers of what we're given. And now I feel the completeness of who Wulwyn-Porte is, right? I feel the completeness that I could lose every single thing, but God, I am one. I'm a child of God, and money does not run me. Clothes doesn't run me. A car doesn't run me. The house, material things, because I know who I am. Mm.
Mm. I am so glad for you that you had that experience, because that's the piece that keeps people from that place of receiving the same joy and benefit that they produce for others.
Mm.
Is when we cannot make that connection. So I had a conversation last week with a gentleman who I was put into contact with, who has a mastermind group, and he's always looking for good speakers. And he happened to mention a group that they had brought in. They had flown somebody in to speak for them a number of years ago. And he says, well, how close to your work, because the foundation, this institute was created by a couple of psychologists back in the 1970s. And I said, well, I'm not familiar with them. Let me do a little research and get on their site and look, and I'll get back to you. And when I sent back a response, I said, what I see them focusing on is helping leaders and organizations move from what they call internal mindset to outward mindset, inward mindset to outward mindset. And I said, that's all well and good, but let me tell you something. Where my work focuses is on the gap in between. Because it sounds great. Yes, we don't want to contemplate our belly buttons and be an ego. We want to be of benefit to the world. But this is the problem, is that if we just tell ourselves, oh, we can't look in, we have to look out. We have to focus outwardly. It's all about being giving to others. And we don't do the initial work that allows us to legitimately and authentically do that. We at best serve the world, but as a martyr, we bleed out.
Oops.
We suffer ourselves.
Wow.
At worst, we become a complete narcissist and work from our ego, because this is why. We cannot form true connection with anything external to us until we create that connection with ourselves authentically. Right? And from that authentic connection, then any outward mindset will work. But if we don't, if we just tell ourselves, I can shortcut that, no, I can't look inward, I have to look outward, we're going to be operating either from martyrdom, where we've been told that self-sacrifice is the way to go, or we're going to be operating from ego, where we're literally are contemplating our belly button, because what we're really trying to do, the surrogacy that we're using in martyring ourselves to the world or being in total ego and being a narcissist is for that true connection. We're using surrogacy of those two pieces instead of truly making that connection. And because once we've established that ownership of self, that deep connection with self, that comfort with self in all integrated aspects of self, not just our good qualities, right? Our shadow side too. We get to do that inner work. If we don't do that, if we don't get to that place of ownership, any outward stuff is not going to work. And we somehow, something will be missing, some level of fulfillment, either to others or to ourselves or to both. Right? So yes, the ultimate desire, because I look at it this way, my work is to help people get to that self-ownership, not only in knowing, but in feeling, but in knowing, in defining.
Yeah.
I could tell you exactly what I'm here for. And I own that 100%. So when people question that, or they think this guy said to me, well, our group is a group of doers, so we don't want anything too fluffy. I said, well, could you define fluffy for me? Because I don't know if my way of looking at things would be considered fluffy to you.
Correct.
Because it's not the way most of the world operates, or most of the world is conditioned to look at things. And so if your group of doers are not open to what I have to say, then I'm probably not a good fit. I mean, I'm not going to force myself on anyone, but I'm also not going to change my message.
Correct.
Right? Because it is what it is. And if
Correct.
people don't understand, that's okay. But I'm not going to change my message. Right? That's the piece that has been coming through so strongly. And what has been keeping us from it is this: when we go too fast, it's almost like expecting a 2-year-old to drive a car. They have to go through certain developmental stages, not only in their brain, but in their physicality, in order to be ready to drive a car. First of all, they have to be long enough. They have to be tall enough to reach the pedals.
Correct.
It's the same thing we do when we expect ourselves to just outwardly. And I'll tell you, when I was an elementary school teacher, I used to see this happen when I was at boys' school. See this happen to my boys that would leave 5th grade and go on to 6th grade. They would come back to visit, and they became these little men. And I thought, at what point do we tell boys, you no longer can feel fear? You no longer can show your emotion? Because when they were in elementary, we would teach them the same as we did girls. They fell down and they cried. We would console them and tell them it's okay.
Yep.
But suddenly get into middle school and it's like, buck up, camper. We teach boys that they are to be mountains and islands, where they are to come up with all the answers, and they don't know any more than we do as females.
None. So
but when we look to you as the men, right, we look to you as you're here to solve, and then we come back and we say, you've perpetrated us by being in control of us all the time. Well, guess who was also a part of it? We've all created the structures that we live in, whether we want to acknowledge that or not.
Yeah.
Right? We blame the man for controlling us, but we always look to the man for the answers. We're not anymore. That's changing a lot. But if I'm looking back, histrionically speaking, and we wonder how we got here, we need to take accountability and realize we all collectively fed into that. Years ago, when I had an ex-military client, we worked very hard on him being able to show even an ounce of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And his biggest fear was that his wife wouldn't accept it. I
No.
said, well, she keeps telling you she wants that from you. He says, I know, but there's this feeling. And I said, it's an enculturated feeling.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
sense that although she says that's what she wants, she's been conditioned to not know what to do with that. And
Correct.
sure enough, the first moment he allowed himself to show true emotion with her, she froze,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we had talked about that. We had talked about that being a possibility and all that. So although he came back to the table and was like, okay, that didn't work very well, he was willing to continue to move forward because he realized it wasn't her, it was her conditioning as much as it was his conditioning, not
Correct.
to show emotion,
Mm, mm,
right? So
mm.
we got to have those conversations, but it's real. And that's what a lot of the guys at Butner would talk about too. It's like, okay, we can talk about it safely in this zone, in this room, because there's space for that. But as soon as we go out there, especially in prison, we
Correct.
got to armor up and protect ourselves and draw it all in. And where they really got the opportunity to advance was to not armor back up when they went back out
Yeah. Yeah.
with the other inmates who weren't in that space, who were not in that class, who weren't learning the things that they were learning.
What I'm hearing, this conversation could even graduate to what the world considers failure. We go to school and you pass or you fail. You do something, you pass or you fail. Didn't do it well. It's not the best. We're grading, right? So the grading gives us the pressure of performing, not based on what our belief system is, but based on what the system is. And you know what? I got to do it. Uh, the conversation of the wife being looking at him as the man, don't cry. The conversation of you saying that women, all of us are to be blamed, women and men, to look at men to be the breadwinner, the mountain, the island, right? And even the flip side, for the men to think that the women are supposed to be the person cooking and being home. I can't stand that, right? So when we come to failure, let me bring it back to failure. When people talk about failure and failure being a bad thing, so when we fail, so I love to give stories in the conversation, because then you can say, this is similar to mine, and then people who are listening can say it's similar to that. So I considered failure not getting to play basketball in America, right? That's failure for me. But when I looked at it in a different way, I found that it wasn't failure, because I learned how to play, and I knew that I know now that playing on a team enables me to anticipate what you would want to do, and I will assist you in in my anticipation of what you would do. And when it works, oh my goodness, magic happens. It's me knowing that I can't be selfish now, or I can be selfish now because I need to do this. And you're not good at this particular thing, this position you're in. So you know what? I know I'm good right where I am now. So I'm going to carry on. And when you transition to a place where I know you're good, I'm going to pass you the ball, right? Failure is failure? You know, thinking failure is not failure. Failure. As I'm talking to you now, I'm saying to myself, wow, failure is a good thing, because it's a teacher. It's a teacher that allows you to experience, in this particular scenario, you can't do this. But why is it that components of your failure, you can take a component that you made in your failure here and apply it to a different situation, and it works perfectly.
Yes.
So
And you know what external failure is?
go ahead.
Where we failed ourselves.
There you go. There you
That's why it's beneficial. Failure is failure, but it's not the failure we call it. It's not external failure. It's where have we failed ourselves? Where have we failed the way in which we look at ourselves, the way in which we identify ourselves, the way in which we feel about ourselves? Where have we failed ourselves? Whatever we see externally, if we are experiencing love, it's because we're loving ourselves. If we're experiencing hate, it's because we're hating ourselves. If we're experiencing challenge, we're challenging ourselves. I mean, anything, any of you all of us, I'm included, anything we are experiencing right now, it's because we're doing it right now with ourselves. If we're trying to control someone out here, we're not releasing and surrendering within ourselves.
Ah, oh my goodness. Hey, can we take a break? Can we
Can we like pause and then
yeah, man, this is heavy.
well, you know why? Again, what do we see out there in the world? It's heavy. It's so heavy, and yet we're having fun with it. This isn't about trying it on in a burdensome, heavy, oh gosh, I feel like the weight of it. It's literally to be like, oh my gosh, it's that easy. When people say that seems too simple, I'm like, okay, just because it seems too simple doesn't mean it's wrong. You know, what you see out there is what's going on in here. If you have chaos in your world now, it's because you're chaotic internally. And it's not to judge that.
Oh, no.
It's just, it is what it is, right? It's like, what's out here is in here. And so we get to use this as a tool, right? To find, because we can't, I mean, I know I've said this before. It's like if I'm wearing something and I want to know what I look like in it, I can't really fully look down on myself and get a full, I have to look in a mirror.
Correct.
And the world external to us is our mirror. So whatever it's mirroring to us, that's what we look like.
Correct. So that guy who keeps, I can't get married because I keep attracting X. Dude, that's who you are. That girl who says that's who you are. You know, you said something earlier that I wrote down, and I was in the moment, so I didn't want to come and switch it up. But now that we brought this piece up, you talked about external language is truly about what's inside, right? And there's a Bible verse that goes, oh Lord, don't let me botch it. The the excess, I'm going to paraphrase, is the excess of your heart comes through your mouth. Out of the abundance of the heart flows out of your mouth, right? Whatever it is. And I remembered years ago when I first got married, I would speak and I would have some vulgarities, right? I mean, I would just, the S word, I never really liked the F word. It was too vulgar for me. I don't know why, but there were certain things I would say, and Verlin would say, Wulwyn, you got to wash your heart. Now, and right there, and then I'll go like, what do you mean I have to wash my heart? I'm a Christian. I know. She says, well, what you're showing me is different. And I fought that for, I had an issue with that for roughly seven years, because we got married in 2000. And I mean, I would say things, talk about double entendres, right? And just stuff that would come in, da 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 da, and it was so witty, just ready off my lips, right? And she would be like, honey, you gotta watch what you're saying. No. Until I started to introspect and find out, oh my goodness, my heart is full of vulgarities. My heart is full of and I'm coming out in the street going, oh, right? And but my heart, if you sat to talk to me, it was exactly who I was. And even though my perception was I'm good, my wife, and I'm pretty sure the people who were my mirrors, who were around me, were seeing that, but they really weren't talking, right? Until my language changed and the mirrors started to say, huh, there's something different about you. You're not Wulwyn. Wow. It's all about value. It's all about wholesome talk. Really. So if you're out there, based on what Traci, we're talking about external language, it's flowing from the inside. If you're out there and you're saying, oh, they are always on me because you're whining on stuff, trust me, it's there. You've got it. You've got the problem. You have to get the rose-colored glasses off, look at your problem and say, I am the problem, because the problem is never, ever on the outside. It's never on the outside. It's always right between the ears, right here, right there, in your heart, right? But that when you say that external language is all about what's inside, oh my goodness, it's the truth.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes the problem is also misalignment, right? So your family and friends were not really engaging with you until you became more aligned, right? To what they felt alignment was within them, right? So your wife, wanted, she herself was in a space where her heart and, her outside was more aligned. And so she couldn't align with, where you were at that time as much. It's not like she couldn't be in your life and she couldn't love you, but in those moments of silence, when we're silent, it's like we really don't know what to say because it's the lack of alignment. So a lot of times people, it's kind of like in the ownership world, like I was saying to this gentleman, it's like, if what my message is not aligned to what your group is about, I'm okay with that. It's not to say that I'm doing anything wrong because I'm not aligned. It's just, I get to stay true to what feels like congruency and alignment for me, right? I don't need to shift and change depending on what my outside environment. So, people could say, oh yes, my outside environment is reflecting back that I need to look at things within myself, but sometimes it's reflecting that I'm just in the wrong environment.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
That if I feel aligned internally, that's why it's important to have this ability to know what internal alignment feels like, and is like. Because then we can measure it to the external experiences that we have. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It makes sense, because if you're not internally aligned, it's giving me if you don't have a vision, you will live another person's vision.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Or if you're not, if you're not aligned to your vision, you're living someone else's.
Correct. If you're not aligned, you are going to get on every bandwagon and attempt it to try. Well, let me try that. Let me see if this is going to work. Let me see if that's going to work. So your alignment, what I'm hearing is alignment is also purpose. Your purpose. It's understanding who you are here. How, I do this with my clients. How do you do? I know we are 9 minutes. 9 minutes.
Jeez. Wow.
Time flies when you're having fun.
That's right.
Your purpose. What's the quick and dirty? And I will give mine after you. What's the quick and dirty for a client or for somebody? I don't want to talk client here, because I want people who are watching, who are listening. What's the quick and dirty way to let them know what their purpose is, to find out, discover purpose?
The way I define it, I have clients work on 3 different separate things around that. I have them decide their core values, which if we're talking about their company, it's their core values around the company, their purpose statement and their legacy statement. And this is where I distinguish between the legacy and the purpose. Purpose is, what is my company here to do and create, my company specifically. Correct. Legacy is more, what is the impact of that on a larger scale. So let's say my purpose for my company, is to help facilitate in leaders the ability to see their true zone of genius, right? And what's blocking them from it, so that they can bring their best leadership model forward. That's my company purpose. My legacy is to help bring people home to themselves, right? So in that purpose, right, this is what I'm doing within my roles, for example. Right? So people could have purpose in a variety of different ways. They could have purpose as a mother, purpose as a business owner, purpose as a best friend. In general, what do you do within that zone that is you, that is beneficial, to a particular area. This is just the way I define it.
Okay.
And then legacy is the impact that your beingness, that you intentionally want to have your beingness make on the outside world.
Correct.
Right. So it's more generalized on a larger impact, from an impact standpoint. What do you do? How do you impact?
Okay. So you gave me a corporate one. Give me a singular person, individual. What's is that the same framework you utilize?
It is, right?
Okay.
So purpose is more like, my purpose, I think I could say because I am my company.
Correct.
My purpose is to help leaders, right? And I mean this even in leaders, my daughter is a leader, right?
Correct.
Within her group. So I use the same approach when I talk to her about, how does she want to show up and do for others, right? That's the leadership piece. And then who is she as a person, right? Is the impact piece. So I guess the other way of looking at it is, goals and intentions, right? So intentions are, who do I want to be? Goals are, what do I want to do?
Gotcha.
Right. And so I always work on intentions first, because I don't believe in the do to be model. I believe in the be to do. We've been conditioned, do this and you can be that. Take these classes and you can get this certification. Do this thing that the system's telling you, and then you can be a good parent, a good boy, a good girl, whatever we're told, right?
Yes.
But I believe in the flip of that, where we came in as beings with certain gifts that were given to us before birth. Gotcha. And that we, from that place of being who we came to be, then we choose to do certain things to impact the world.
Gotcha. So we came to this question based on, and for people who just came in, we came to this question based on having your internal compass, your true north. I think it's your external language defining your internal language defining your external, right? Making sure that you are aligned in order to get your vision. And just hit me to ask that question about purpose. What I do is, so there's a fancy way I would perceive, and then there's a simple way. The fancy way I do with clients, with businesses, etc., is I call it your CMVP statements, right? Your core values, your mission, vision, and purpose. Where your mission is what you do, your vision is what you want to see it be. So I think that's in line with legacy per se. And then your purpose is your why. When you answer, why am I here? That's your purpose. That's in the long and short of it. The simplest way I do it is I tell individuals, what did your mom or your dad or your friends come to you for when you were a kid? What was it? Go ask your mom and your dad what they saw in you, because we are stewards of our kids and we see it before they see it. And Traci, I can ask you what your daughter's going to be. You will tell me 2-3 things that she may not. If you say she's going to be a builder, it's not going to be a builder per se, somebody who's a contractor. It will be somebody who would build something, build people up, build infrastructure, just be a builder. So you would know what that is. So I always go and ask your mom, your dad, your inner circle. So your 360, your mirrors, right? That's right. Ask your mirrors what they saw in you. And you would know when you even ask your best friends, because I still remember when I was so-called writing software, I had friends and close friends come in, hey man, give me what do you think about this? And I'd be like, what do you mean, what do you think about this? No, man, I want to hear what you think about it. I'm like, you want to hear what I think about it? I said, well, that not knowing, my mirrors were telling me, hey dude, you've got an insight that we want to hear, right? And I'm pretty sure I can put it back to you. That's exactly what was going down in your life with people. Traci, and they just sit and look at you and be like, what? Like, Traci, tell me something about me. And Traci, I tell you, I'll say this and I'll punt back to you for last words. so last week we found out we were warriors, right? Warriors, our names. And I there's so much more to what's going on here, right? When I say here, meaning between you and I in terms of coming to do Eavesdrop, there is a. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, the work that we do, to the person, the work that we do, we may not see what's going on, but I'm pretty sure when we engage with others, we will see what you and I are doing. So I'm going to say this here. We don't really see what we're doing. We because we're in it, and we don't. So the only way we can find it is via our mirrors. And what my mirrors are saying, man, Traci, they are getting what we're here, what we're speaking about. And I am getting what we're speaking about. And I am grateful that we are doing this together. So grateful. And I'm gonna hit you back so to give your last words, and then we say bye.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Well, one of the things around what you just said that I'm really appreciative of two things. I'm appreciative of a lot of things, but these are the two I'm going to bring up today. One is this ability to have self-discovery, because you and I do this for other people all the time. And we have our own coaches or mentors, and we do that individually. But
Right.
This is something that's at a different level of vulnerability, because it takes a different, like when I'm on the phone with my coach, nobody hears me but my coach. And I challenge myself to be in that same state of vulnerability when we're having these conversations.
Correct.
And I don't know who's listening, right? So that piece is really growing me, which I appreciate, because I'm very used to having the insights and very used to, and I realized that that's been my measure of control and safety, is being able to focus on the insights that I see. But it's not always about that. In fact, if anything, I've been pulling back on that. When people say, what do you see? I'm like, well, what do you see? Because it doesn't matter what I see. I want you to start to train yourself to see you.
Gotcha.
Right? And so I can give you certain things based on your language, but if I hear you say it in such a way where you want me to tell you what to do, or you want me to tell you what to think, I pull back from that, right? Because that's not that insight. I could be spot on. Doesn't matter. Your self-discovery is about your self-discovery, not my discovery of you. I can be a mirror, but if I feel like somebody's going to use that without filtering that information through themselves,
yes,
then I don't give that information. But the other piece that I really appreciate, is that we have this space where we bring, we can show up and trust and bring whatever it is that's in us and put it out there just for the value of sharing, right? There's nothing, there's no expectation of what this is. I mean, correct. I would love for this to become a podcast and, get just because it's fun. Like it would be fun to see that happen and to see where that would go and all of that. Correct. But not for the reasons of the value we usually subscribe to things.
Sure. Like
money and power and, likes and fellowship and all, that's not why. Just because it'd be fun. And I'll close with one of my favorite meditations talks about miracles, and we don't do miracles based on need or a gap in our lives. We don't ask for miracles based on egoic reasons, or we're not meant to. We look for miracles based on what will be fun and expansive and joyful and connective and collaborative, right? That's why we seek to see miracles in the world, or want to look for those miracles out there, is actually not for egoic reasons, but because of this, just simply for the fun of it, simply for the ability to see that greater things can happen for no reason other than they happen. Right? Not because, oh my gosh, this sickness needs to be healed and where's the miracle? But just like, oh my gosh,
it can be done.
This came in and this shifted and and that's fun. Yes. That's fun, yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Yes, we think we do it to prove to ourselves things or to fix things or to make things better, but really we're in this simply for the fun of it, the joy of it, and the experience of it.
Gotcha. So I'll say this: the wind is going to take us where it's going to take us, and we'll just put our sails up and do what's supposed to be done. So once again, 7/22/2020, it's 2:03 p.m. Da da da. Episode 9 is in the books. Traci, you take care of yourself.
You too will win.
Oh, bye bye.
All right, bye.
So I stopped.